Today is a lunar day where I'm at, and I was thinking, what would I dedicate this video today that would be of the moon? And I thought, well, eclipses. And this is not about a particular eclipse. I have a video on the upcoming lunar eclipse tomorrow. It's not about this one. This is generally about eclipses, and it is inspired by actually a discourse I had with Israeli astrologer Yair Tribelsky, who is unfortunately currently not doing stuff in English, and I hope to change that soon. And I posted something about a solar eclipse, and he was like, I don't think these eclipses are like meaningful at all. And that was interesting. And another person on Twitter asked the question about why do people believe that eclipses create fated events? And I take Yair's comment about, well, it was like it's a change in eyesight, it's a change in the way you see things, and that's true because the sun and the moon, they are ruling the eyes, and I just wanted to roll with that, to take that it's a change of how you see things, and let's begin to roll, okay? Forget about the nodes for a second, because the nodes are usually activated by eclipses, and this is when they matter, and then there are things that trigger eclipse points, and this is why planets triggering the nodes or triggering the eclipse points, even when the nodes move, are triggering certain events. When keto, it's about letting go, purification. I'm very grateful to. Okay, I'm not going to say that because they didn't want to be a part of this discussion, so I'm not going to mention that. But purification, um, and Rahu is about bringing something new. Although Keto can bring something new, eclipses on Keto can bring something new. It's just that they take something away that you need to let go of, and then you might get, the new thing around. And Rahu, they make way. The eclipses on Rahu, they make way. But before I delve deeper into that, um, the sun and the moon rule the eyesight and the left and right eye, the mother father figures. Okay, and now it's not about gender so much, but about the qualities of caregiving versus being a provider, of containment, yin, versus being inspirational, yang, and the Lord of the Sun is Ra or Shamash. That and when you read about these lords, they deal more with very not linear information, but definitely light, illumination, how things work, what patterns there are. And when you deal with Luna, you deal with attachment patterns, letting go. Okay, think about what a sun talisman can do for you versus what the moon talisman can do for you. Okay, moon talisman is very important because it awakens you to heal whether the womb in the body physically or self nourishment. Um, and the solar is about confident doing something. And so when these luminaries come together in a meaningful aspect, and we have the new and full moons, um, and new and full moons are not just defined, it's not just, oh, it's the cycle of the moon. It's the cycle of the moon in relation to the location of the sun, in relation to the location of the earth, because we see it from the earth, we can see new moon and full moon, but it does, it's our perspective that creates that. And so eclipses are around new and full moons. Um, the solar, when the moon meets the sun in a position and an aspect where it, where the sun is hidden from the earth, and then the full moon is when there is actually a full moon, but in a certain position where the moon is hidden from the earth. It's a full moon, but we see it eclipsed because because of its geographical position, a cosmic geographical position relative to our eyesight. This is true to, the entire astrology. I mean, in this eclipse, also Uranus is going to be eclipsed, right? So that's a big deal. It's a very big deal. Doesn't always happen. So of course, it has to do with how we see things. The entire astrology has to do with how we see things and how we are being gravitationally pulled by things. And when I take the word gravitation is a big word because the biggest effect we know of on the tides of the water, the oceans, the seas, is the moon, and later the sun, and later the other planets. So the moon is very significant, and then the sun. And then we have a gravitational pull that is beyond eyesight. And so if the sun and the moon they rule how we see things, if we're being pulled in a certain direction by merit of the relational connections between where we are and other sources that are, like attractors. Perhaps the word attractors is strange, because, or maybe not, I don't know. Um, but the gravitational field of every planet has interrelations with other planets. And wherever you are on that web of being affected, you're being pulled in various directions, and your position of being able to perceive things and being able to sense things and being able to project things and being able to reflect things changes. Okay, for example, if I'm recording this video from, my parents' house, then there is a different energy. There are different energetics. I may be pulled to talk about different content. Like it can change so much as I might make videos on different topics, whereas where I'm in my home, my house, different different energy field, and I'm being pulled to talk, do different things. Okay. Or if I'm in Israel, then I will, I talked about the elections in Israel and not a special Halloween that was on the same date because that was more um, powerful in the location that I was at, even though I made a video for the white crowd. When we understand this concept of gravitational pull, of eyesight, of the caregiving versus protecting, of reflecting versus projecting. The sun projects, the moon reflects. Okay, and then we understand what happens when it is the sun being hidden by the moon. Imagine two actors, a man and a woman, the most stereotypical, a man and a woman, acting like the most stereotypical a man and a woman, both of them on stage. Okay, a solar eclipse is when, you know, the woman just stands in front of the man, and now we see the woman and we don't see the man. Whatever he is trying to show and project to us, it is blocked by the woman. We only see the woman. If we are in the theater looking at them, we only see the woman. And the other way around, if the man is now blocking the woman, then we only see the man. Now, this is something that happens by merit of the movement of the planets. It's not an ego war, it just happens. For that moment where we see the moon, we know the sun is behind it, and we can't see the sun, we are aware. First of all, we are very much aware of those things that we don't see and are shocked by those things that are there. They were always there, but we didn't pay all that much attention to. And the nature of the eclipse tells us the nature of the overlap. What is those things that we suddenly don't see and they are, imagine something being for a moment taken away. Do you know these schools where you have one day one of the parents or one of the students becomes a teacher, and then the absence of that which is gone, the absence of that which is not seen, just like there are planets hidden by the light of the sun, right now Mercury. So the absence of that is now you notice that something that was very obvious to you is gone. And by the time it's coming back, it will still be the sun, but something different, something was taken. This is the time where, solar eclipse, this is the time where kings die, where people who are solar figures die, some perhaps profound actors, actresses can die. And the lunar um, is the opposite of it. Okay, it can be main caregivers, people who are like a Mother Teresa, but not necessarily. Um, but definitely people that are lunar in nature, and that can be some creative people, although that would probably be more attributed to Venus. It can, in a way, be astrologers or people who are looking into hidden knowledge, simply by the merit of the moon being a reflection of something and not a projection of something. Um, and and anything that plays a mirroring effect can wither. Suddenly, we don't see them, or that they are completely being taken. And by the time we'll see the moon, it will be a different kind of moon. Now, why different in terms of the planets? What do we know about a planet that is in the light of the sun? We know that it's like going through an upgrade. Yeah, it's been upgraded. It's been updated. Okay, there are these connections between those um, things, even on a gravitational way, even though it is an illusion by us. Um, this illusion is created by the change of the distances between the planets themselves. And so, yes, there is an effect, okay, that is there. It's just that we see this aspect, these facets of this effect, and if we'd been on Mars, we'd see another facet of this effect. So yeah, change of sight is important, and the change of sight is the yeah, a change in the way we see things is fated. For example, if you take a look even at the natal chart of a person, one way to look at things is what into what situation was this person born? What was the position of the father, the sun, the 10th house? What was the position of the mother, the moon, the fifth house, because this is the birth, um, at the time when they were born? How is their moon afflicted or not afflicted, and their sun afflicted or not afflicted? So the more solar role, solar caregiver, okay, and let's say it's a person to people of the same gender, okay, so the person who was closest to serve the solar role, um, what was what was that person like, and the person who plays the lunar role, or closest to play the lunar role. I know it's difficult to you. It can be you are very welcome to constructively criticize that. Just bring, how would you do that in your non-binary way, because that is more needed than to tell me the obvious that this is not sufficient to describe all types of gender relations. So we check into what sort of caregiving and protection was this person born, because that will affect how this person feels and how this person sees the world. Okay, the concept of nature nurture, in the sense that this person was born to this family, to these parents, and that upbringing affected the way they see things, is exactly the perspective that we are at a certain position of being gravitationally pulled by the moon and the sun, in particular the moon and the sun, because they're the closest, the most meaningful, um, to the earth, and how is the relation of the moon and the relation of the sun with each other and with the other planets affecting the situation and the circumstances that we are at, and what we are able to see, and the sets of dispositions that are available to us. Every position of the moon and the sun is like that, and to a lesser extent the other planets. Of course, new moon, full moon, the phases of the moon, and the phases of the day. Okay, some people are, sleep on it. What is sleep on it? Sleep on it, wake up new, refreshed. Okay, if you sleep on it, you wake up with a new perspective. It's the sun. Why? You meet your needs, you self nourish, you sleep, you wake up, and the fact of rest and action and the relations between them change how we see the world. Think about labor, moon in Taurus now. Think about how we raise children. Think about the family. Think about the requirements from parents. Uh, Now, moon in Virgo, in Taurus, and what it means for, everything female, feminine, financial value, image. But that I talked about in the eclipse. And so our eyesight is fated. How we see the world is fated. Eclipses, in this sense, are simply, well, in politics of war and peace, there's the saying that war is the continuation of diplomacy by different means. Eclipse, in this sense, is the continuation of this concept accentuated. Um, Eclipse simply means that something that we have taken for granted is notable in its absence. For example, when Queen Elizabeth died, everybody knew she's not going to live forever. But it didn't, like, we didn't think she's going to live forever. In Israel, we had Shimon Peres, rest in peace, who lived very long, and nobody believed he was ever going to die. We know that people are mortal. We know that he must be mortal. Nobody believed that he's going to die. It still surprises you, even though it's obvious. It's obvious that, and that is a good example. And this is, it's obvious that people die. It still surprises you when it happens. Okay. But it can also be childbirth. Some people can get pregnant around the eclipses. And that can also be a surprise. It depends what house it happens. If it hits your personal planet, who are the rulers, so on and so forth. The circumstances in life. Um, and and in this way, you can absolutely say that falling pregnant is a shift of perspective, or that it sometimes takes a shift of perspective to bring life to the world, and that is true. Um, so in this sense, eclipses are intense, but they're not distinct from the major role of the moon and the sun per se. We all know that in the full moon we are expected to see that which we didn't see, and in the new moon we are expected to notice the absence of that which we take for granted. So we have it every new and full moon. Okay, when we if we are exposed to the night sky and we're used to, whoa, the moon is here, oh, the moon is here, and we don't know if it's Capricorn, it's Taurus, and we don't know a thing about astrology, and then there is the night where the moon is absent, and we look at the sky, we look for it. Where's the moon? Where's the moon? Where is the moon? That's so strange. Okay, then we begin to notice that it happens every once in a while, so we can try to count. And this is already a solar ability, okay, to count and divide when are we expected to not see the moon again and then to re-see it, because there's something unusual happening there. It sparks the attention. Something is missing. The moon is missing. What's going on? The moon is missing. The moon is missing. Okay. Um, and then when you plant seeds, then they grow with the cycle of the moon. And when this happens and there is an eclipse, so it's something funny. There is also the eclipses. What they add to the equation is the flipping of things, and this is important because right now Mercury is in the light of the sun, and Mercury is a flipper of things. Um, so it contributes to me being able to discuss that. What happens during the solar eclipse? Okay, the sun is shining, but it is covered. What happens during a lunar eclipse? The moon is full. The moon is full, but we don't see it. So imagine, okay, you look at the sky and you don't know a thing about astrology, and you see the moon here, it grows little, little, little. It shows you that it's gonna be gone, and poof, it's gone, and then it begins to show itself again. But it moves a bit, so you understand that it was moving, even though, like the position where it has in the sky, it was moving. So it was moving when you didn't see it, because it reappears in a continuum. So you say, okay, either the moon skips a sign, either the moon skips and it blips, but still when it blips we don't see it, and then we see it that there is a gap of space with the time that it takes to be away. So it it's it's something that we don't see, but what we don't see makes progress, and then we do see it. It is also true to other planets, like invisible, visible Venus, invisible, visible, and any planet. Okay, uh, and then you learn this cycle for a while, but then the moon is full, and suddenly you don't see it for a couple of hours. Okay, if you're observant, which the ancient wouldn't advise you to because it's intense energy, but if you are observant and you don't see it for a while, and we have to observe it in order to study it, so somebody has to do the trial and error. um, so you don't see it for a while, and then you do see it, and then of course it changes as it would had there not been a lunar eclipse. Um, So that's weird. And then you ask yourself, okay, when am I expected to see that? Because I've seen the moon doing crazy things, but there's some sort of like cyclicity in there. It's around 27, 28, 29 days. And then, okay, and then this eclipse thing happens. When am I expected to see that? And this is how you begin to understand that there are certain distances from the earth that it makes that are changeable. Why? Because what I'm able to see is related to the space that object makes in time, the space that object travels in time. And there are so many things, there are so many perspectives, there's so many vectors to use to understand that motion of these bodies. Yeah, that's just the astronomy of it, or how you discover the astronomy of it. It's by observation, but then you also notice that with every year, these eclipses they change. So something happens here, and that's something, and this is where the moon comes in. That something is not necessarily that something changes outside, but it can also be that something changes inside. And this is where you can begin to understand that your planet itself might travel as well, and not just these planets. You can begin uh, to bring this question: what if we are moving? What if we are moving and not they are moving? Oh, what if we are moving and they are moving? Because today we also understand that the sun itself is not stationary. It goes through a certain spiral and makes certain progress around the cosmos. Not, yeah, I don't know if around is the right word, but it's more linear than in its passage than the passage of the planet circling it. You could expect that these discoveries were made around eclipses. Now, it can be simply by merit of what have I got to observe? Day, night. Okay, the polarity, day, night. And then, oh, night in the day in the night. There is a night in the day and the day in the night every once in a while, but that every once in a while in itself changes. So there's something going on here. Okay. The passage, now this is astronomy. The passage of our discovery, if we understand that, sun, day, the father figure, the projector, the provider, the protector, the illuminating part of our intelligence, the part of us, even if I am a woman, the part of me that is solar, and so on and so forth. And lunar, okay, the reflector, reflecting on things, the light that shines in the dark, that which is hidden from the eye, that which perceives the shade or the shadow or that which the solar figure is less aware of, which can contribute to a lot of conflict between solar and lunar figures, be it men or women or just solar and lunar. Because the lunar sees what the sun, what the solar projects but doesn't see, and then when the lunar reflects it, then the lunar it kind of becomes the solar, and the sun sees what the lunar is not really seeing about themselves. Because the mirror needs a mirror. The mirror needs to check itself in the mirror every once in a while, and this is also the meaning of an eclipse. Both a full moon and a new moon, but also an eclipse. Okay, something flips. The sun is the moon and the moon is the sun. Okay, if the sun is the sun, it's like, mommy and daddy switch themselves. And mommy does what daddy does, and daddy does what mommy does. If you think that, when they come back and they talk and sit and talk, go out on the weekend date, and these are, let's say, your parents, and then if you think parenting is going to continue on being the same after that, game, oh wow, it's not going to be the same. And that is, again, it's the power of new moon and full moon, but it is also the power of eclipse, very accentuated. There's something that if mommy does all the time, mommy gets to do daddy's job, and when daddy gets to do mommy's job, and mommy does dad for a day, there are some things that she's going to discover and that the child is going to discover and the daddy is going to discover that we will no longer see after the day that happened. Okay, let's say, daddy's way of keeping the children silent when he's doing the babysitting is giving them candies. And every once in a while, they need to visit the dentist, and they don't understand why the teeth are decaying so much because the mommy takes care of the children every morning. She makes sure every morning and evening they brush their teeth, and she makes sure she gives them the meal. Everything is okay. But when she's not around and daddy's babysitting, he gives candies all the time. And for one, let's say, one time they decided they switch roles. And then they found out what's actually happening. So the children, or it can either be that the children will not make noise because they know mommy's not going to give them candy, or mommy finds something next to the counter that she looks at that she didn't notice, and it's like right next to them, and it's like a jar of candies, and she's like, where is this coming from? And they're like, and she talks to daddy, and she's like, what, you want to tell me you didn't notice that? Why do you think? When I have to babysit them, and I just give them a treat. And she's like, I haven't noticed that jar until I was just babysitting them in this hour, and I see this jar of candies, and I'm like, what is a jar of candies doing in the house, in a place that's so visible by the children? And that's it. Well, I just tell them, if you be good kids and you don't make noise, then you get a treat. And that works for him, not for the teeth. But that jar of candy will very much either not stay or not stay. Like either the candies will go through an upgrade, and there will be these healthy candies that they can do that with, or the entire jar is going to go out of the living room. It's like it's going to go out of the house. Okay, that is something that, to some extent, a new and full moon bring. To a big extent, an eclipse brings. It brings you something that, if it touches a personal planet, if it touches a ruler of a house in your chart, um, it will bring into your life, in a certain field of life, a certain discovery, even about the self. Even about, it can be you discovering something about yourself that, oh, you were not aware of. And that sense of discovery will change the way you see things. It will also change your behavior according to your new vision. For example, if the mother and the father are going to talk, and they say, well, and the mother says, well, it's not a bad idea, but we have to make sure that these candies are healthy. And also we have to make sure that we only give them if the children behave properly, so they know they cannot get more than one candy. It's like there are rules and regulations around this. And she can explain, well, you see, we're visiting the dentist, and we already have to do this teeth treatment, and I don't want them to have pain that, now they're just children, and the father understands the meaning of this small treat that has been given to them, how it plays in the bigger picture, and it's like, okay, then we need to do something about that. But darling, you're not taking this treat option for me. It will be a healthy treat, but it will still have to be something that they like enough to shut up. It has to be effective. Because if they make noise and I get crazy, I lose my job. We don't have money to even pay the dentist. Okay? And that is a solar perspective. If they make noise, I go crazy, I lose my job, we don't have money to pay the dentist. This is a very sun perspective. But the lunar perspective is like, but if we give them healthy food, then they won't have to have anything really big at the dentist. We just make sure that they're well nourished, and then the visits to the dentist are just becoming a regular check and not something where they actually have to do something that scares them. Okay? Um, about those mother fathers of the universe and your life and the life of the people dear to you. Think about how the collision of that yin yang perspective, that lunar perspective and that solar perspective, how the collision of them um, creates great illumination in your life. But it can be a shocking point of view, shocking here now with Uranus, but in general, it can be something that you suddenly see something in a different way, and that is by merit of the roles being reversed, something being taken away, and something is becoming visible or visible in its invisibility. That's fated. Um, and because we are also moving, and because um, there are changes to the way we relate to the sun and moon across not only our seasons but also the years, because those things will seem to happen in a different constellation every time from our point of view. What do I mean constellation? The sun and the moon will seem to be in different constellation from our perspective. And those constellation change with them, the nodes, the south node, the north node change. Okay, the south node or north node are the points, they're the nodes of the moon, there are points. Every planet has these. I don't want to mislead you, so I'm not going to talk about the nodes to too much detail because I don't want to there are some things I still need to check myself about this. Um, but I did want to speak about the change of sight that we have, how it is related to the gravitational pull that we are in the context of, and why it is something that is so simple but it brings something that is so significant, and why the events that are triggered by this meeting of the sun moon, when one is being taken from us, thinking we are the children. Now, today, mommy is doing daddy's job. Today, daddy is doing mommy's job. Okay, that's the sun moon thingy. Um, so, it's something that it touches our self nourishment, our nourishment moon, and our perspective sun, how we see things. Both of them is how we see things. So how we see things is both what am I looking at and how am I looking at it, and also how hungry or thirsty or deprived or things. So I can look at poverty, and I could look at poverty where I slept well, I drank well, I don't know, and I say, well, this is a very unfortunate thing. I don't know how this happens. Or I can look at poverty and be at the midst of it, and I will say, well, I need food, I need this, I need that. And then another, perspective will be looking at poverty where my food, my self nourishment is dependent on some power figure that I have to see things according to them. Otherwise, I will not have this, universal income or whatnot. And then it's like, okay, how do I how do I meet these needs that I have in a way that's independent of something that can disempower me and and put me in a position when I'm reliant on their survival. All in all, I don't want people to not be taken care of. So the that shift of perspective with how am I nourished, or how are the people closest to me nourished, and what do we do about this? So um, eclipses are very much about what is the level of me meeting my own self-nourishment needs, moon, and how protected I am in relation to what is available for me to see, what is available for me to face, what is available for me um, to do about it. Now for the notes, I will go general because I cannot explain it as in depth. There are things I still need to learn deeper about the notes to do so, other than myth. So South Node, and I believe, fix me if I'm wrong, I believe this can be generalized to the nodes of any planet. South Node, what we're letting go of, and in terms of lunar nodes, it's where the soul has been. It's the soul's upbringing. If you believe in multiple lives, so it's the soul upbringing multiple. This is what the soul has done. And north node is this is where the soul is heading. There are also the axis, so the nodes are axial, so it's not one pole. It's an X, and that means that if Rahu is in Taurus and Ketu is in Scorpio, it means that we also have a node in Leo and a node in Aquarius because it's an X. I don't know too much about um, that X, but this is why you say, well, the eclipse is touching so and so, if the eclipse is touching the fixed signs, all the fixed signs are affected. It's not just by the merit of Rahu and Ketu, there are also like the side axis, the Leo, Aquarius in this case. And so we say the fixed signs. And this is true to every significant transit, but also to the nodes. The node, what we're letting go of. So if you think about detoxing, purification, these are great things you can achieve with the south node. Okay, you're detoxing yourself from something that's no longer relevant to where you're moving forward to. Okay, it could be, for example, that getting a scholarship where you can live and study was very relevant to the time that you didn't have education, but now with post Me Too plagiarism and things that you've seen when you've been there, like, okay, now it's really about time to let go of that, let's say, scholarship view of financing education and find other means to do so, or maybe change the education to such that people can do also while they're working, so they're not dependent on the workplace for housing and for food. And so you're moving to Rahu, and you're like, okay, there are certain worldviews, there are certain things that need to let go of in order to get to where the soul has not been yet. And then there is the trick, because what helped you get there, you need to remember that, but also there are some things you need to unlearn and you need to forget. I actually think a very interesting quote. I don't know if it's a real quote or not, but by Jay-Z. And when I think about Jay-Z, I think about it's a hard knock life for us. It's a hard knock life for I don't remember. Yeah, bad tone, but that to me is Jay-Z, where he started, and of course he's in a completely different place now. And the quote said, "When I was poor, I wasn't complaining about how poor I am. Me and my friends were thinking about how rich we're going to be." Now, obviously, wherever Jay Z is heading, this is the worldview that least that serves him right now. Does it serve humanity? I don't know, but that is where he's headed. That is where the worldview, um, that is the shift of perspective that he has, and he's able to see. It doesn't mean that he lies. It means that now he remembers those things and how those things contributed to him being where he is. Whereas if we listen to Jay Z, we listen to basically starting up from also making very socially aware songs about what is the reality of being a black kid in the projects. There was a part of what he was known for. He wasn't just rapping about, bling and gangster rap. He was also rapping about being a kid at the projects. And probably how I, sort of a kind of a white person from the Middle East, got to see a black kid from the project doing rap on MTV. That's something to remember and to consider. But wherever Rahu is going, and this is why Rahu is sometimes considered malefic in a natal chart, because Rahu is craving to go somewhere and needs to do unlearning to do so, and they can forget the past. They can forget, and they can be so starved for something that, but it is also fated because the soul has not seen that part yet. The soul has not done that yet. The soul does not know how to do that yet. And there is a shift of perspective that allows you to get from point A to point V, and the whole process of going to point B in terms of the soul is to change how the world is seen, um, in at that point. And this is also why Rahu can be malefic, because once Rahu is somebody else's ketu. Okay, if I was not wealthy in the past and now I'm growing wealthy, then am I changing something about the process of growing wealthy? Or is my Rahu just somebody else's Keto and I'm just doing that, in different colors, sometimes literally? Um, but there is also the acknowledgement that to get from point A to point B, you need to shift the perspective. If I'm taking personal responsibility, because at the stage that I am, it helps me to find faith and meaning and belief that there are things that I can do different, and those different things can yield different results. And this does give me, sort of advancement. That's lovely. But A, when was that available for me? And B, there is also the limitation of the responsibility. Because that very same thing that got me to succeed can get me to be in relationships where I'm actually being abused for that, for this point of view. That if something terrible happens in my life, it's me that needs to do what I can do to change that, or to change me, and then things will change. But then, if that's something terrible that happens in my life, it's just somebody being disrespectful to my boundaries, and I think that other than to set a clearer boundary and to expose and to change, there's something else that I need to do. Then and they do not have any, shared responsibility. That can be problematic. That can be a dissociation, literally. Well, it's great to focus on what we can do. And when the nodes change sign, they stay about a year and a half in every sign. And that means right now it's Taurus, Scorpio. So Taurus, Scorpio axis. What house is it for you? Is this the 7th and 1st? Is it the 12th and 6th? Is it the 10th and 4th? Then those areas of lives are going through those changes where something that you took for granted is no longer going to be there, because it was good up to now, but from now on it will have to be revisited, changed, taken. Something else is going to provide, and that's something else, and that's a complete shift of perspective. also it means that something that people forget is something that was not available up until now, especially when it's a Rahu eclipse, but also with the Ketu because they lead into each other. Something that was previously unavailable to you becomes available. The world is changing, and so circumstances are changing, and so your point of view changes accordingly. It by gravitational pull. It's like by gravitational pull, it will change how you see things. And you will become less tolerant to some things, detox stage, and perhaps more tolerant to other things you didn't think you'll be tolerant of. Okay, that's another thing because you're venturing into Rahu field, thinking about a person that, um, or if I think about myself, if you try to take me into a customer service work, even if the place is amazing and I just love it, if I have to do that, for several hours each day, and I've been through that, I'd go to the bathroom every second. I will drink water. I will become allergic, and then they will give me pills that what they cause is actually to make the mouth dry. And then I will drink even more. I need to go to the bathroom even more. Sooner or later, I will explode on someone. It usually will be someone who loves and admires me and just wants the best for me. Um, but and sees that something is not working and thinks for himself like what is to do. And then that explosion will be, and then eventually either I will get fired, or I will leave, or some scandal will happen that has nothing to do with that, but something to do with other things, and so on and so forth. But there I am, recording a video for an hour now. My mouth is a bit dry. I have a glass of water next to me, and my throat is sore. Of course, it's not the same amount of hours, but this is something that I do voluntarily. Currently, nobody pays me to do that. I actually would love to change that. I actually would love to get paid, but in a way that contributes to my well being. So I'm tolerant to doing something that is in favor of where the soul is heading. But the body itself becomes intolerant to what is no longer, to what does not serve me, to what is not, and it's not because I don't want to, or I don't care to, or I don't want to be safe, or it's because it's just so. There's the certain, it's like if I was fit to be in condition A, then there is a contraction, letting go from condition A, but then there is an opening where there is condition B. And that's something you pay attention to around eclipses. So there is your natal north node, south node, that is triggered by eclipses. And when you have nodal return, it is considered a major, an event of major significance in your life because it's opening an 18-year cycle. So every 9 years, the nodes reverse, and then every 18 years, they return to their original place. So right now we are starting another cycle of 18 years, that those things that are concerned with our Scorpio-Taurus axis and the axis of its rulers, Venus and Mars, in our lives are going to transform for the next 18 years. And then, they're going to change to Aries and Libra. And then again, if your nodes are on one of these axes, then you're having either a node reversal or a nodal return. And so that can even further accentuate the fatedness of eclipses for you. That's why eclipses bring fated events. That's how they bring fated events. Um, Being born close to an eclipse or on an eclipse, it means that the role that these fated events and these upbringings play in your life is perhaps more tremendous than someone who was not born under eclipses. In the shade of like in the couple of days before an eclipse, like something, I think 15 days, depending on the orb you count. Um, we have between 4 to 6 eclipses each year. So they're happening all the time. But of course, you only have one sun in your natal chart, and then there is the progressed sun. So up to 36, even in Vedic tradition, I believe this chart is the Rasi is the most relevant to you. And so if you have an eclipse on your sun or eclipse touching your sun, that's only going to happen every 9 years because of the opposition versus a conjunction. If there is square, yes, it can affect because of the axes. But on the sun, you're going to have it only 18 years. So you only have around 4 times in each 18 years, 4 chances in each 18 years where you could be affected by an eclipse that is your sun related. So we're afflicted by them all the time because we have all the planets, right? We have at least the traditional seven. And then if your outer planets make an aspect to inner planets, then something aspect in your outer planets will have an effect on the personal planet that is touched by it, especially by hard aspects, for sure. I know some people are like, don't outer planet me, and they can get it with the 7 planets. They can, absolutely. Um, I like Dan Waite's note of Adam Ellenbus giving his students a practice to define the outer planets by the inner planets, but not so that they get rid of outer planets, but they can understand the fractal fracture structure of the universe that allows us to make, instead of 100 equations, one equation, and then we call that the Uranus transit. Instead of this, the Mercury that touches the Saturn, that touches the Mars, that touches the this and the this level, in that level. It's like, okay, now Uranus is trying in my Venus. This is what's happening. Okay, it's not that it's not possible to define them by the 7 traditional signs. It's just that it takes more lines in your arguments and in your computation, and therefore it's important to understand that you can do that, and it's also important to understand the economicity in using other outer planets in your practice. So yes, absolutely. If you have like Pluto, Scorpio, if you have Pluto on 2 degrees Scorpio, then and this Pluto touches your inner planets, you're gonna feel it personally. Absolutely. Anything more I have to say about this, lunar aspect of eclipses? Um, Again, caregiving and providing in the field where the nodes are. Right now, Scorpio, Taurus. But this video is relevant not only when the eclipses are on the Scorpio Taurus. I wanted to make it as general as possible so that you can return to it whenever you discuss eclipses, um, whenever you discuss why they're so meaningful, why they're so powerful, because it's to do with our upbringing. And our upbringing in the larger sense. It's to do with the planets that most affect the tides, the physical tides, what's physically going on Earth. What do you use the moon for? Magic. Why do you use? Because it's the closest to Earth. So if you want to bring, let's say, an affection of Mercury, you have to have the moon, not the sun, the moon on Mercury, either conjuncting or hard aspecting, so that you can or at least trying, but preferably hard aspecting, so that you can bring the attributes of Mercury by the merit of connecting it with the moon. And then you can make Mercury talismans. Don't you make direct contact with Mercury. You make the contact to the moon because it's the closest. So of course, anything that happens with this moon, especially an eclipse, is going to make a significant change to our personal lives here on Earth. And then, of course, you can see what joins these eclipses. Okay, so the previous solar eclipse, we had Venus, and Mercury close to the eclipse. And now we have Uranus, which I would assume is rare. I don't know when did it last happen. I think Lada said it was about 500 years, but I might be mistaken, so check astrolada.com for that, or Lada Duncheva. She always comes up with fascinating information um, that people don't usually talk about. So also check Astro Victor. He's doing something about Sedna that I found very interesting. Um, so Uranus, this is relevant to this eclipse. Uranus being a part of the eclipse, it's a big party of unexpected, unconventional attributes. And I'm very biased because my natal moon harshly aspects Uranus. And strangely enough, I love this aspect, and probably I'm not supposed to. Um, but this is Uranus, okay? Um, I don't know. We're joking about grounding, like people need to be grounded. And I went with my dark joke of like, with Uranus being involved in an earth sign, I don't know if grounded is the right advice to give people for the eclipse. Very dark joke. Um, it's not too far from my sun. So, yeah. And I do live on the Syrian African crack, I don't know how to call it, where they have an earthquake every 100 years or so, and the last one was 100 years ago or so. So I don't know. I don't know. But do know that I love you and I care for. No, never mind. So yeah, I think that's what I have to say about eclipses. I think I touched pretty much enough of what is relevant, and you're able to listen to it one time. Um, so that was me. I'm happy to see people are watching more and more of my videos, and I'd like to see that growing. And yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Have I don't think you can say an easy eclipse. There's nothing easy about this eclipse. It's funny. I'd rather not say too many. I've said too many words already, but I'd rather not say even more because, yeah, it will definitely be an eclipse. People are like the events that will happen around this. People will definitely be talking about. Um, just so it is. I hope I answered the question of why eclipses bring fated events. Okay, it's the gravitational pull and the fact that it's our upbringing, like our mother father thingies. So of course that affects the native and the world. Um, and why fated? Well, because by merit of the movement of the planets, then if you join circumstances where the moon meets the sun in certain position and they flip roles, then of course it's going to change reality tremendously and significantly. And those tremendous significant changes happen all the time. Think about how many people are being born every day. Not the best thing to say on this eclipse, but yes, but think about it. Even with all the difficulties that there are, just how many lives are being brought every day. That's changes that happen every day. So there's both significant fated life changes that are important, and we have 4 to 6 of them every year. Okay, so there's eclipse season. Um, it's usually advised not to observe. I know I talked a lot about observation, but it's usually not advised to observe these eclipses. Why? Because they are intense in energy. Do you want to watch your mother or father discussing how they're going to take the candy jar away from you because you need to take care of your teeth? No, you don't want to be. And if you will be, you might be becoming the whistleblower, and instead of being, well treated for that, you're going to get slacked for it by both mommy and daddy and your sisters and brothers. So you usually, like, if you watch an eclipse, it's like, don't expect to keep it secret, but it's like it's going to manifest in your life. even stronger because you're being exposed to more of that, even more of that energy. Um, but then do not expect like do not expect to keep it secret, and also because you're bringing something that is shocking to the world, then you're very likely to be met with shocking responses, or people find it difficult to contain you because they find it difficult to contain your energy, which is going to cause further difficulties on your getting your needs met, and you're feeling safe in the world. That's why it's considered by the ancients bad omen. It's considered something you don't want to expose your energy too much. If you're going to be touched by that, there ain't nothing you can do. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's changes that need to happen, but they are disruptive. Um, so, uh, so if you are at all energy sensitive, I you probably noticed by yourself. If not, I bring this knowledge to you. You want to tell me I'm going to watch the eclipse anyway. I feel you. I feel you. I understand you. Just know that this is something that can happen, and make this decision as informed as you can. I hope you will live to tell the experience. So, um, closest eclipse is tomorrow, and then we have rest until I think April, May. Yeah, April, May, and then the nodes begin to change towards the Libra Aries uh, axis, which will bring fascinating and not reverse, but yeah, because then the Rahu will be in Mars ruled sign, and Ketu in Venus ruled sign. So I guess a lot of inclusivity for the male individuality and acknowledgement in what the young man is going through, so that the path will be more paved for young men to succeed, or for way path makers, or for people who are the first in doing something. Entrepreneurs, perhaps even small businesses or solopreneurs, and the difficulties that they deal with in regulation. Hopefully, that will change in favor of the small businesses, or there will be, there's some regulations that need to go so that new things can flourish. This is where the next set of eclipses is leading us. This set of eclipses of the Scorpio Taurus, of course, it's some fears of survival need to go so that we can act more from a thriving perspective, and think about how rich we are rather than complain about what we don't have, because we have. So um, that that was it. I'm Tali Share on Twitter, Shelly Youngblood on Instagram, Shelly Tali Youngblood on Facebook. I know Twitter is going a bit weird. We'll see what happens there. Facebook will probably be weird as well. I'm looking at decentralized stuff, and they're starting to charge fees as well, which is not necessarily all that accessible. And if I have to pay a fee for something that is like, I don't mind paying dividends, I am feeling very concerned about paying fees before I entered a platform, because I'm afraid it will go the Musk way. Musk was also an innovator at this time, and then look what happened. So that's something that's happening, and I am on the look on decentralized social media. I am available for readings right now because I'm a one-person show. As you can see, I'm not very branded. I don't keep people for advertising, marketing, and whatnot. So you get the same product that you buy from a brand, but without the brand, and therefore the reading is $50 and not 300, 400, however much I would have to charge if I would want to ethically hire employees to market me and brand me, which eventually I will, like, it's not something that I don't want to do, to give more people good job positions. It's just something that I'm not in the threshold where I'm able to hire someone. and I do want to allow accessible readings to people, because the time is calling for that right now. That's how I feel. So that's the pricing. I think it's, I know it's not accessible to everyone, but it is more accessible than a lot of other readings. So you can contact me on Twitter or Instagram. I will not contact you. This is important. In case you have been in another galaxy, there are huge scammers on every social media that try to, they find an astrologer or find a personal or any public figure that is doing something significant to the world, and then they open a fake account and they tell you, you know, sometimes it's beloved and so, and it's more easy to identify. And even then, they manage to scam people just for the sake of thinking, you know, oh, this and this person turned to me, and you know, in DM and so on and so forth. But they do get more evolved. You know, I have been contacted by people who presented themselves as a famous musician's mom, a famous musician's manager. Um, I think Chris Brennan, the beloved one. But then I unfollowed Chris Brennan for a while, but then I refollowed. I hope they're not going to contact me again. Um, and then, you know, all kinds of like stuff. So they do get evolved in this very peculiar way. And so, and also they're starting to charge fees for the blue V's. So the best way to go about this in the meantime, this is my channel. It's previously been Channeling Science, now it's the Nude Astrologer. The name is probably going to change. As you can see, I'm not very nude right now, and I don't plan to be. The whole point of the Nude Astrologer was a joke that I was not wearing anything, just recording my face. But then I noticed that, you know, I thought I would make it a thing, but then I noticed that to be the Nude Astrologer, I have to do the things that I didn't like doing when I didn't present myself in this way. Like I have to pay attention to my lack of clothing more than I have to pay attention to wearing clothes. So I prefer to just do what I do right now in this way. Um, and so my channel name might change. Turn to me, okay? Turn to me. I think I'm public enough in enough social medias to compare and make sure that I'm the person you turn to. I'm only able to receive from you either a bank, like, and to give you my IBAN if you contact me, and then you can transfer me money. And then I'll even have to see how do I give you the receipt or something. Like it's that initial, or Ethereum or Bitcoin, which I also have to like find place to install here in the phone. Um, but if you do that, then that's available. You contact me. I will not contact you. I will not offer you readings. I might call you beloved, but that's the most. But which is funny. I really didn't like that they used beloved because I used to use that word. Um, anyhow, uh, yeah, I'm not going to ask you for any of your bank details or any of your account details or anything that could lead to anything. The only thing is if you turn to me and you asked for a reading from me, and then we have the reading, and then you pay me. Okay? This is how it works right now because I still need to work out the way of getting paid, literally. The world is crazy now. Um, so that's my Zweigruschen about the scammers. Yeah, eclipses in general. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye. And if you have requests, oh, that I forget it all the time. You know, if you like this video, of course, subscribe to my channel. Click the bell thingy. My comments are, you know, are an open space, so do not shy from asking me questions, and I do take requests. So you see, this video would not have been created if not for several conversations that took place. So I do take both requests and. If you ask questions, then there might be somebody who answers them. I'll see you in my next video.